Well, overall, guys, I would say that was a pretty damn solid first season for the most part. It's kind of weird that it stretched over, basically a year or more than a year. So it's difficult to just sort of assess the whole thing, just sort of trying to remember everything that I saw. But yeah, it basically ticked all the boxes that I was hoping it would when I first learned that this show was have a revival, a reboot. It was basically sort of right up my alley. I mean, it obviously takes a lot of inspiration from Gravity Falls with the world building and the large cast of characters and the ongoing story arc and the mystery elements to it. And obviously, some of the characters are obviously very similar to Gravity Falls characters, but also I was a massive fan of the original series from the 80s and early 90s. It was the early 90s for me, because we got it a few years later over here. I would go as far to say it was probably my favourite show growing up. But it brought in things from the original show. It had its own style, very different kind of animation style, very much did its own thing, brought some things in from the comics as well that weren't in the original series, and it also gave us a little bit more that the first series didn't have, which was that sort of story arc kind of element to it. Very much trying to be its own thing, while also there were also references to Darkwing Duck and Gummy Bears. I was kind of hoping for a Rescue Rangers reference at some point once I realised that they were referencing other shows, but no, as far as I'm aware, that wasn't in there anywhere. Had a little bit of a Doctor Who element in some places, in that the characters were kind of going off and trying to help people out in certain places, rather than being like an adventure, a treasure hunt. They sort of just showed up somewhere and tried to help people out, So maybe that's why Scrooge was voiced by David Tennant. Who knows? Yeah, the story arc was definitely the thing that sort of kept bringing me back. It's like made it really engaging. I think the main thing I remember enjoying about that first series is just that the stories were just really interesting. The kind of things that the characters went through, the different sort of arcs that they go on. There's quite a clear character arc for both the nephews and Scrooge in this first season. There's a lot to talk about, really, because there were definitely a few episodes I didn't really enjoy. I thought, they bored me a little bit, but the characters, just their presence on screen, and I think the ongoing story arc were really what kept me coming back. It's like, yeah, this is still worth watching. If I had any kind of minor gripes, the character of Lena's kind of downplayed for large parts of the season, and then suddenly there's a lot of stuff involving her towards the end. There were a lot of kind of nothing sort of episodes, and the fact that there were long periods in between certain episodes, that made it a little bit more frustrating. There were a lot of sort of just slice of life episodes, and then next to it there was an adventure, and I'm like, Ducktales really sort of works a lot better as an adventure story, really. I mean, I like the slice of life stuff, it was what I really liked about My Little Pony, but I don't know, the slice of life stuff did not work in this show. I made a video about Lena when she first showed up in the series, how I was a bit concerned that it was going to be like a mystery or a character arc, just for the sake of it, just to keep you coming back, but it didn't really turn out like that. It turned out relatively satisfying. It was just sort of all sort of rushed in there at the very end. I thought she could have used a few more episodes to properly flesh out her character and the arc that was going on there. Obviously they changed a few of the characters. Launchpad I thought was a little bit downplayed. I mean, they got his character pretty much spot on from what he was like in the original series, so I didn't really have an issue with his character. It was just, I could have used a little bit more of him. They must have been well aware, the people who made this show, that he is very much a fan favourite, but I don't know, maybe they just watched him in that original series and thought, well, we just can't possibly top that, so we're not even going to try. Webby was kind of like a completely different character who just happened to be called Webby. She wasn't really the same character at all, which I guess I'm okay with. I wasn't a massive fan of her character in the original series. I know, a lot of people did not like her. It was just a little bit distracting. She was so similar to Mabel. It just put me off a little bit. At times, the similarities to Gravity Falls were a bit distracting for me, because it just felt like a poor man's Gravity Falls in a way, which is still a good show. Gravity Falls is that good. Even a show that's similar to it but slightly less good is still a really good show. It was just distracting a little bit sometimes. The finale, this is kind of difficult for me to explain why it bugs me a little bit. This is probably just something that bugs me personally. This isn't really a knock at Ducktales specifically, it's more of a knock at shows like this in general, but I don't quite understand why these kind of shows that are just about sort of slice of life, small adventures, a large cast of characters just living out their lives doing shenanigans, why do they always, particularly animated shows, they always feel this necessity for the season finale to be some big epic fate of the world type story, where some Deus Ex Machina object comes in at the very end and saves the day, and there's this huge, big, evil person, trying to conquer the world, going, you're gonna stop me, and then suddenly at the very end, somebody steps in and it's all resolved and everything's fine. It looks like the entire world is going to get destroyed, and all the characters have to pull together to save the world. And I don't understand why they always feel like season finales have to be like that. It's getting a little bit tiring for me personally, just every single season finale of animated shows being like that. Not to say that the finale was bad or anything, it was just a little bit, for me personally, it was just a little bit, is this kind of story again? Yeah, it's my problem, really. If it doesn't bother you, I completely understand that. It's just a personal thing that I found maybe distracting or irritating, but I've seen this so many times. As far as the season overall is concerned, I'm not sure I have much else to say. Lena's story arc was relatively satisfying with the way it worked out. I like the fact that the nephews, they very much tried to make them like individual characters this time. Huey, Dewey and Louie in the original show, they were basically one character in three bodies. I didn't even know as a kid that the red one was Huey, the blue one was Dewey, and the green one was Louie. I honestly just thought of them as all one character. People automatically just call them Huey, Dewey and Louie. You never refer to them as individuals, but they at least tried in this series to make them individual characters. I'm not entirely sure they succeeded. I mean, you could definitely see in terms of, they had slightly different outfits, outside of just the different colours, obviously. And they gave them different voice actors. I assume they all had the same voice actor in the original series. They certainly sounded the same. Whether or not they actually gave them different personalities is a little bit difficult to say. I mean, they definitely went off as individuals quite frequently during the series. I suppose Dewey had a bit more thirst for adventure and wanted to really prove himself. Huey was more interested in his relationship with Scrooge and being like his mentor. And Louie had kind of a very sort of close relationship with Webby. Dewey was the one investigating the whole story arc with their mother, mainly. And for some reason he kept the other two out of it. I didn't quite understand that. So they definitely tried to get them to do individual kind of things, but overall, I'm not entirely sure if I would still be able to define them as individuals that much. If they just showed one of them on screen in neutral clothes, I'd probably have a hard time telling you which one of them it was. They still seem like very similar characters to me, but I appreciate at least the attempt to make them seem like different characters. Also, despite what a lot of people say, why do they sound like adults? I actually really like their new voices. I did not like the voices that they had in the original series at all. It's like they just irritated me. The sort of duck elements that they gave to it, it just did not sound good to me. I never liked listening to them talk. So giving them more sort of human-sounding voices in this, it sounded much better. With that said, I actually didn't think David Tennant did quite as good a job as Scrooge as the voice actor from the original series, whose name escapes me at this particular moment. I know he passed away a couple of years ago, so there's no way he could have come back and reprised his role. But at the same time, David Tennant, great actor. It's a little disappointing he wasn't able to do quite as good a job, I thought. Not to say he did a bad job, but I just didn't think he was quite as good. Launchpad's voice acting was about the same. In fact, he sounded quite similar to the voice actor he had in the original series. Webby obviously was a massive improvement in terms of voice and also in terms of her personality. I don't quite understand why Mrs. Beakley was British. And also there was no Duckworth in this series. They just thought he didn't add anything to the original series, so there was no point even having him in this, which I kind of get, As far as the way the season ended, I kind of guessed that was the way that we're going to end things, and, I assumed that their mother is going to be a recurring character in the next season. I kind of would like some kind of flashback episode, though, where we actually get to see her for a full episode and learn really who she is, and also what her relationship with Scrooge was like, and how much losing her actually meant to Scrooge, and what kind of effect it really had on Scrooge. Because at this point, the only reason I really sort of care about her and them finding her and what happened to her and everything is really just because she's the nephew's mother, really. Her, as a character is concerned, I don't really know anything about her, so I don't really have any particular reason to care that she is found or that she comes back and is reunited with her sons. That was okay, that story arc with her and that. I am hoping we're going to find out a bit more about her in the next season. I'd be okay with that if that was the way they were going to go with things. It's a slow burner, as they say, which is kind of the way that story arcs have to be. In fact, I remember one of the criticisms after the pilot episode last year. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, Scrooge has a really bad relationship with his nephews. He's really angry and horrible to them." It was never like that in the original series. It actually was like that for the first few episodes, guys. That was the first episode of a long-running series. It's what you call leaving room for character growth and character arcs. It's a good thing to have in the first episode. It's no good just giving people questions or making people ask questions. I have to have a reason to care about the answer, regardless of whether or not it's even a satisfying answer when I finally get it. In the same way that Gravity Falls did. It's obviously taken a lot of inspiration from Gravity Falls, which is a good thing. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed this season. If you guys haven't watched the show or have not caught up on anything, it does have a recommendation from me. I wouldn't call it an outstanding or great show quite yet. It's only a first season. Maybe you shouldn't really expect that. Guys, and I will see you again soon. Farewell.